In this video, I will be talking about the rule of thirds, one of the most fundamental photographic concepts with relation to composition. Even though it is called the rule of thirds, it is not really a rule. It is more like a guideline, something to consider when composing images or video. Where it certainly works and has its merits, there are circumstances where it will not, and you may have to break the rule to get the composition to portray the message that you want. I think the phrase "rules are made to be broken" is quite applicable here, but to break the rule, you must first understand it. Then you can learn when it is appropriate to break and when not. I am currently breaking the rule, but that is a conscious decision of mine to do so. Having said that, there is scientific evidence showing that when you compose an image like this, it makes it much more visually appealing to the viewer. So most of the time, I'd stick to the rule. Let's get down to it. What is the rule of thirds? Well, it is actually a very simple concept to understand and demonstrate. It is a process of separating your image into thirds. The most common way is to put a 3x3 grid over your image, or imagine one is there. With this grid in place, you now want to place your elements within these thirds. And more importantly, you want to place particular points of interest where these lines intersect. You can imagine this grid if you like, but most modern cameras have a setting that will overlay this grid on screen for you, so it takes out the guesswork. Let's take a look at an example. This picture of a figurine. It is framed dead center in the image. Now, if I move it to one of the vertical thirds lines and place its eyes as near to an intersection point as possible, you get this result. Visually, that seems like a much more interesting picture than the first. Just a simple change in composition makes a huge difference. Having said that, the rule of thirds isn't an exact science. You don't have to place the elements exactly on the lines or exactly at the point of intersection. Sometimes the shape of an object doesn't allow it to conform fully, or sometimes you want to capture a certain thing in frame, but having it there will mean you're not exactly on a thirds line. In these cases, you can just get your composition as close as you can to the lines or intersection points. The more you get used to framing like this, the more intuitive it will become, but don't be super strict about it. When photographing or filming people using the rule of thirds, you generally want to place them according to where they are looking. So if your subject is looking towards the left side of frame, which is their right, you want to place them on the right-hand thirds line. This way, the negative space, the space that isn't filled by anything in particular, is getting filled by their eyesight. If I place the subject on the other side with the negative space behind them, it looks very strange, as this area is just empty. There is nothing there of relevance to the image. Whereas if they are looking into that space, it feels like it is part of the image. It's relevant because they are looking into it. It's filled by their vision. So to sum up, split the image into thirds using a 3x3 grid. With people, place them on a vertical thirds line with their eyes looking towards the opposite side of frame, and place their eye line on a horizontal thirds line. Doing this will ensure the body and eyes hit near to points of intersection as well. With objects, try to place them or their center at a point of intersection in the lines. And for any points of interest in an image, try and place them at a point of intersection. As I said before, this isn't an exact science, so as close as you can get things to these thirds lines and intersection points, the better. But don't sacrifice your image to get it perfectly in line. There you have it, a basic introduction to the rule of thirds. Hopefully you now understand what it is and how to apply it to your own compositions. I've primarily talked about this technique in relation to photography, but it is not exclusive to photography. It applies to many disciplines, like videography or graphic design, and many others. If you want to read more about this, there are plenty of resources online that go into great depth about it. So go out there and shoot some visually appealing compositions.